Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to something that you were talking about just a moment ago where you're explaining about your slide on goals. And it was noted by Lieutenant General Gillen as well as Lieutenant General Clark that they based it on the core or on the demographics of the United States. But I also note that there is an office in the United States Military Academy of Diversity, Inclusion, and Equal Opportunity Committee. So if it's judged off of the core, could you tell me what makes two things: an individual qualified for this committee, and what recommendations does that committee make?
Sir, I have a Office of Diversity, Inclusion, Equity, and Equal Opportunity. All right, that office is a tool. It's a recommending body to me, as it provides information to me across our academy, which is not just inclusive or just the Corps of Cadets. It's inclusive of our entire population that exists at West Point. That office, again, is a body that provides me advice, recommendations as we look at different aspects
Some of those
the
recommendations
academy.
be like the goals that that the chairman was just talking about earlier?
That office does not provide the recommendations on goals with regards to our class composition.
We have fewer of this race or gender, or more of this race or gender. It doesn't plug into any recommendations whatsoever of where we're at on the goals?
Sir, when we look at that, that's derived from our admissions. And again, with regards to the establishment of the composition goals, that is based off of the Army Officer Corps,
Okay.
it is established on a yearly basis.
Moving on, I always go back to this same question. It seems to be a very difficult question for a lot of our military. What is the difference between equity and equality?
Sir, I think that as we think of equity, equity is that everybody has the same opportunities. They're able to aspire to achieve the goals that they have laid out for themselves, and that there are no hindrances or barriers to achieve those respective goals.
And what about equality?
So as we have equal opportunity offices as directed by the Army and Department of Defense, our equal opportunities, again, through which, whether it's through our military occupational specialties, branches, whatever line of work or profession that they're in, the equal opportunity provides that they have all individuals, respectively, are able to aspire, they're able to be promoted without any hindrances or barriers.
See, that sounds like the exact same definition, similarly, just with different way of saying it, as equity. And my definition and understanding based on DEI and what its metric was and what was utilized is that equality is exactly what you said. It's about equal opportunity. It doesn't define you by race, gender, your socioeconomic status, things like this. But equity was more based on the ideas of equal outcome. You know, it wasn't a metrics-based system that the diversity, equity, inclusion was going into. And I would argue that part of our recruitment deficit that we see in the United States military, we're at about 25,000 short right now on our recruitment efforts, not to mention the 8,600, which were unconstitutionally purged out for the vaccine mandates, is because we have prioritized a little bit too much, in my opinion, that diversity, equity, inclusion is important as opposed to what we should be focused on, which is increased lethality, readiness, and being properly equipped, which is the way it was when I was in the military. You know, I spent between my military and government time over 7 years of my life in Iraq, over 3 years of my life in Afghanistan, Kosovo, Pakistan, was blown up twice in '06 in Baghdad. I didn't see anything wrong with saying colorblind or anything like that because everyone who was on my team, we bled green. And I'm seeing where there is just such a focus and or a priority which is really hurting our military recruitment efforts because people think that it's about us being able to out-pronoun our enemies as opposed to be able to meet the challenges on the battlefields. I wish that we'd get back to the be-all-you-can-be Army that we were and not try and go ahead and start driving political agenda. Allow our military to serve our government, our country, not an agenda. With that, I yield back.
Rep. Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to remind the group that is actually the motto of the Army, #1. Correct. So mission accomplished. For each of our esteemed leaders, could